So, you are the Coca Cola of the early 1920s, when an outrageous amount was paid as never before in history. But you have a big problem. Although you are a very prosperous company, you need to start producing for the shareholders, but people are not consuming as much cola as the financiers would expect. So what do? Well, you come up with a strategy to skyrocket your revenues. But there's a catch. To achieve your goals, you need to make the whole world dependent on your product, as that's the only way your plan will work. However, you can't resort to the old dependency-inducing, drug-containing coca recipe, so you have to come up with something better. And then you introduce the use of another, perhaps even more addictive white powder, sugar, to make generations addicted to your products. So, you need a method that helps motivate your customers to buy and get addicted to your products. Now, you might be saying to yourself, but if we implement this, wouldn't it lead to people quickly gaining weight and developing type 2 diabetes? Well, yes. So what will you do? You quickly get the world addicted to sugar. And how do you get people addicted to sugar? By raising them from a very young age to choose your product. You can induce long-term sugar dependency in them. However, to make children addicted to sugar, you need covert techniques, as you cannot openly advertise your product on TV due to legal restrictions. The identification with Santa Claus is just one part of this. There are also Coca Cola plush toys, such as polar bears, that reinforce this message. Moreover, you appear in places like amusement parks and schools. Yes, you've entered into contracts with numerous schools to make your products available in their vending machines for students. The contracts subtly dictate that those working in school catering should offer your products instead of healthier alternatives. Furthermore, you are so determined that you even acquire Columbia Pictures, bypassing advertising laws and promoting your products in movies. Of course, if you've come this far, it's not surprising that more and more information is becoming public about your cunning deeds. Several studies have been released to date supporting that since the onset of mass sugar consumption, over 40% of the population has become obese, with an additional 30% becoming overweight. While people continue to gain weight, the situation remains unchanged, as behind the scenes you enter agreements with pharmaceutical giants to support the American Academy of Pediatrics. This academy recommends drug therapy for obese children, further exacerbating the problem. You also play a significant role in manipulating the system, paying off organizations and scientists to silence the facts and propagate the false belief that obesity is primarily caused by a sedentary lifestyle and poor diet. This endeavor is, of course, part of your organized campaign, during which influential scientists convey this standpoint through medical journals, conferences, and social media platforms. Additionally, you provide financial and logistical support to a non-profit organization called the Global Energy Balance Network, which argues that people in the United States overly focus on their diet and beverage consumption concerning obesity, neglecting sufficient time for physical activity. You employ this strategy with the intention of diverting attention from the role of your sugary beverages in the development of obesity and type 2 diabetes. Furthermore, you use the organization to convince the public that exercise can compensate for an unhealthy diet, despite evidence loudly proclaiming that the impact of exercise is limited compared to dietary factors. Although many public health experts emphasize the role of energy balance in weight regulation, they stress that research results clearly indicate the greater influence of dietary decisions over exercise. This misleading campaign also targets children, as you financially supported research claiming that the main cause of children's obesity worldwide is insufficient physical activity. Previously, the consequences of global sugar consumption were less conspicuous. But in 2008, a study on the addictive properties of sugar brought shocking facts to light. Attention has been directed towards three main characteristics of sugar addiction, which parallel the effects of dopamine overuse caused by hard drugs. Recurring episodes of overeating, withdrawal symptoms, and persistent feelings of hunger. Thus, when rats were periodically exposed to sugar, the chemical changes in the brain resulted in all three behavioral patterns. The skyrocketing prevalence of obesity in recent decades has made it challenging to overlook. However, being no stranger to this, you have always had a strategy for it. Alongside other major players in the food and beverage industry, you have worked diligently for years to obscure the truth about sugar addiction. Therefore, you systematically push the narrative that fat is the real culprit, even though there is little evidence supporting these claims. They have become widely accepted as facts. Lobbying and befriending government officials further reinforced this narrative. Then, when people realized that many low-fat products were not the real solution, you simply shifted to a strategy of outright denial. Who cares if this could lead to a decline in the quality of life for millions and a reduction in life expectancy? Who cares that obesity, type 2 diabetes, and cancer are just a few of the potentially harmful side effects of your products? The essential thing is to keep the shareholders satisfied. But you've mastered one thing that you can effectively apply in the future. The detrimental health effects disproportionately affect those at the bottom of society who lack sufficient information or choice. However, to maintain your market advantage, it's not enough to just defend your addictive products. It is crucial to eliminate emerging competitors in the developing market before they can become significant players. So what do? In Colombia, you start collaborating with paramilitary groups, leading to the torture and tragic death of employees of a rival bottling plant. In 2003, a union boycott was initiated against you, claiming that the manager of your bottling plant in Colombia hired paramilitary forces to intimidate, threaten, or even kill union members and workers. The goal was to halt union activities that posed a threat to your market share. The accusations alleged that the plant employed right-wing militias with connections to the United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia, allegedly killing 9 union members in rival Colombian bottling plants. It also came to international attention that you strategically targeted key union members in Colombia during collective bargaining negotiations. Actions allegedly committed by paramilitary forces hired by you were also linked to the kidnapping and torture of the 15-year-old son of a union member and the murder of another union member's brother. However, as we know, you are no newcomer to the game, and the actual evidence is incomplete, making it difficult to conclusively prove, as both the United States and Colombia's legal systems ground slowly, causing them to dismiss the court cases related to your involvement. It is clearly evident that your activities in Mexico have showcased your strategies and methods. In fact, Mexico serves as a perfect case study of how you behave when given free rein. In San Cristobal de las Casas, in the state of Chiapas, one of the poorest areas in Mexico, the problem is most severe. On average, the people of Chiapas consume over 2 liters of Coca Cola daily. Initially, it may be challenging to understand why your product is everywhere in this region, where there is abundant rainfall and major rivers, yet clean drinking water is practically unknown to the population. Even the street names in this region remind locals of your presence, influencing indigenous communities. A water bottling plant symbolizes your exploitation in the region, one of many operating on the outskirts of the city. It pumps out over 1 million liters of water from underground sources daily. Many environmental groups and local residents argue that this plant is causing the drinking water shortage experienced in the city. However, you hold a contrasting view, asserting that the water shortage can be attributed to factors such as inadequate infrastructure and climate change. In San Cristobal, a portion of the available drinking water for the population is treated with excessive chlorine, which can be harmful in the long run. As a result, some prefer tank water or bottled water. However, Coca Cola is readily available and costs the same as bottled water. Therefore, many simply choose Coca Cola over water. The popularity of Coca Cola in Mexico is extremely high, where your market share in the soft drink industry exceeds 50%. The beverage truly gained momentum in the 1970s, particularly due to the North American Free Trade Agreement and memorable advertising campaigns, such as supporting the Mexican Olympics and World Cup. However, in the Chiapas region, where there is a significant indigenous population, you had to employ special and cunning efforts in local marketing campaigns. Therefore, you went so far as to use actors dressed as indigenous people and religious symbols to encourage them to consume your products. This propaganda has been so effective that the carbonated beverage is not only popular, but has now become ingrained in the culture and religious ceremonies. Some shamans even use cola for healing purposes. Clearly, excessive consumption of Coca Cola can have the opposite effect. If someone drinks more than 2 liters of carbonated beverage daily for years, it can have a catastrophic impact on their health. In 2 liters of Mexican cola, there is more than 150 grams of sugar. This is 6 times the recommended daily maximum, which is 25 grams. Though I quietly note that in developed countries, 2 liters contain 220 grams. Too much sugar is harmful to teeth, can lead to obesity, and depending on lifestyle, can contribute to many dangerous diseases, including type 2 diabetes. Excessive consumption of Coca Cola is particularly harmful to indigenous communities, as they are genetically more predisposed to developing diabetes. Many of them have been displaced or lost their land due to environmental pollution. As a result, their diet has also changed. Instead of homegrown fruits and vegetables, they are increasingly turning towards processed foods and sweets. However, their bodies were not prepared for a high-sugar diet. In Mexico, diabetes is one of the most common causes of death, especially in the Chiapas region. Sugar is killing more and more people in San Cristobal, and many do not believe that Coca-Cola is unhealthy, as the beverage has been with them since childhood. But you, over the years, have cultivated close relationships with the Mexican political elite as well. Former Mexican presidents such as Vicente Fox and Enrique Peña Nieto were both in your employ, and since you later supported their political ambitions, they in turn provided you with support in every aspect. By leveraging your political connections and economic power, you can easily influence political decision-making and indigenous communities. And if you come under attack, you simply emphasize that you are a prominent supporter of indigenous communities in terms of sustainability and economic development, asserting that you exert no pressure on them or influence political processes. You claim that at least you provide people with something to drink when water is scarce. But it often happens that you contribute to water scarcity and high prices, since Coca-Cola production is a reductive process. To produce every liter of Coca-Cola, 3 liters of water are required. And this issue is even more severe in India. When you opened your newest bottling plant in the village of Caladira in 2000, you initially gave a boost to the local economy, and everyone was thrilled. However, soon the uncertain water supply of the desert village ran dry. The stable water levels for years suddenly started to decrease. Wells dried up, and farmers often couldn't draw enough water for their crops. The community was almost entirely abandoned before the problem was resolved and it was restored to order. The same story repeats in other communities in India. In Plachimada, it only took 6 months for you to destroy the ecosystem. When your plant opened in 1998, you pumped out 500,000 liters of water daily, forcing the world's poorest people to leave their lands and homes for miles in search of water. And despite portraying yourself as an angel, you distributed the toxic waste generated during the production process to villagers for use as fertilizer. When the sludge samples were tested, extremely high levels of toxic metals, such as lead and cadmium. The damages amounted to nearly $30 million, and the people living there still have to transport water today thanks to this angelic move of yours. And although the factory eventually closed in 2004, you still haven't paid a single cent in compensation. Of course, there's a reason why you don't make a big deal out of these stories, as your major shareholders wouldn't want this to come to light. And these are the same people who control the media, governments, and the press. By exploiting sugar, manipulating governments, and funding biased studies, you managed to capitalize on the addictive and harmful properties of sugar for years. But now, with the epidemic of obesity and diabetes resulting from this, it's much harder to avoid this topic. However, you've been working on Plan B. For a while now, you've been contemplating how to introduce the use of CBD and other cannabinoids in your beverages. And when marijuana finally becomes legal worldwide, the doors will finally open. You'll find a way to incorporate those specific cannabis compounds into your products, making your drinks even more addictive. For similar reasons, you are now strategically turning towards alcoholic beverages as well. Among other things, you've already partnered with the company behind Jack Daniels, and every day you're venturing into more businesses in this field, because sugar is not addictive enough. Now you need drugs and alcohol. And if the anti-sugar campaign continues, Coca Cola will embark on the golden path of alcohol and marijuana. In fact, this will be your new masterpiece, the new face of the Coca Cola cartel, returning to your original roots to once again sell drugs. And if nothing else, history has already taught you something, such as always being ready to exploit the masses' dependencies or manipulate the thinking of world governments and the most influential figures on Wall Street, because together you are capable of anything, even distorting the impact you have on society. It is our responsibility to choose which products we support and consume, and to monitor how companies conduct their activities. Social responsibility and information transparency can help make companies more accountable for their actions.